I am working with a group of integrally oriented diplomats who've been working in the Middle East for 30 years.
Yeah.
They have an approach to shifting from dealing with states to civil societies as the ultimate grounding to build a sustainable future.
Yeah.
So in 2 months, we are having a meeting sponsored by FETSER with 50 people, and I'll give you just a rough idea. Richard Armitage, former Deputy Secretary of State, Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, former Secretary of Defense, the chief political advisor to the President of Egypt, Senator Charles Hagel, the head of the Foreign Relations Committee, the Crown Prince of Jordan, the Foreign Minister of Iran.
Yeah.
Pages and pages.
Those guys. Yeah.
Those kinds of folks.
Yeah.
So they are being invited because they have some openness to this idea. They've been involved in dialogues.
Yeah.
They're clearly in many different stages in a very complex environment. Wars, political policies here in America, religious issues. So my question would be, what goal can we even have to try to bring some sense of a common stage understanding, and what processes could we use and be aware of with such an intensely diverse and complex situation?
It's a very difficult issue because often what people do is they say we're going to move from states to civil societies as a way to best implement some of the ideas that we have. And often some of the ideas that they have are green. Now, not always, but it's one of the moves behind it. And the simple fact of moving from states to civil societies in the lower right doesn't guarantee anything. Because you can have, for example, you might create a whole series of civil societies, all of them are red. And that would be a disaster, because all it does is it lets that flourish. And so unless the civil society has, the one advantage that certain states have is they have a constitution that embeds their average level of consciousness as the law of the land. And the Constitution of the United States is orange. And the amendments to it are orange to green. And that's the only thing that stops a whole lot of traditional values from taking over this country. As hard as they are trying, the Constitution won't let them. Kansas outlawed the teaching of evolution for the second time again last summer. I think they're going to do it every summer. And keep in mind, I mean, a democracy can elect a completely traditional or modern value structure, and it can elect in the square states in the center of the country that are based on agrarian, fundamentally still have a mythic membership orientation, so they're ethnocentric, they're fundamentalist, and it's not a put down, it's just a simple statement of where their average center of gravity is. And a majority vote will allow them to do things with local government that the national government won't let them do. And that's one of the things that we have to watch very, very carefully. But even that's not immune, because you can still get people into the Supreme Court. And the present administration is working very hard to get the Supreme Court to basically do that, to have a Scalia Amber orientation. So it's a very spooky thing. And so what you want to have to, I think, in something like this is not necessarily on a first pass come up with solutions or anything like solutions, because those are very difficult to conceive on a large scale. We can talk about that in a moment. But the general necessity of doing them can be discussed and can be brought up. And just by saying, wait a minute, the simple fact that this is the structure we're going to have of these civil societies, we're going to get closer to the people. We're going to have a one-on-one vote. We're going to bypass the government. We're going to have a one-person, one vote electronic democracy. Great. We will elect ethnocentric fascists because they have a slight majority in this country. So this is one of the awkward things. If you look at the percentage in terms of where the demographics are, and you realize that by the time you get to, let's just go right to the end limit as one example, somewhere between 2 and 5% of the educated population in this country is second tier. And Jane Lovinger's studies show that. You get the same stuff from Spiral Dynamics and Claire Graves. So if you have 5%, let's say, of the population that's at integral, you think you're going to get a democratically integral government elected? It's hard. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have democracy, because I don't know any alternative, any truly viable alternative. What we depend upon is leadership. We depend upon, frankly, fairly enlightened leaders that are interested in these topics and are willing to go in and basically help make them a little bit more the law of the land. That does, in many cases, that's how it works. And y'all know, just using my work, I don't have any other way to do it. It's not tooting my own horn, it's just examples of how Integral has had an impact. And of course, in terms of sustainability, y'all know that Al Gore, when he read The Marriage of Sense and Soul, which is a book I did, called it his favorite new book, and told the New Yorker that while they were profiling him. And I've been in contact with him. The last phone call I had with him was over 2 hours, talking about exactly how he could get involved with the Integral Institute using the integral approach. So we've just recently sent him a large kit explaining integral ecology and integral sustainability. Lots of contributions by Barrett and his team, and certainly Sean and his. And we think it's a really terrific package. And because y'all seen him, he's doing a lot of promotion with his recent film. But his heart is in the integral sustainability approach. Bill Clinton, quoted this at World Economic Forum, which really shocked a whole lot of people. Said what the world needs now is an integral consciousness, as described by Ken Wilber in A Brief History of Everything, in A Theory of Everything. And then he lamented the fact that so few people, he said it was a consciousness that's way up there. And he said what really upset him is that in the world at large, so few people are there. And that really, really, really bothers him. And it's one of the things that we want to discuss when we finally open up the World Federation branch at IU, and with Bill Clinton involved in that. Tony Blair has quoted this from the floor of the Parliament, and so on. So I think we're at a point where enlightened leaders can start to get some of this into play. And if you have a chance, obviously, at that meeting to do that, then what you're going to talk about is just the necessity for vertical understanding, for adding depth to this flatland approach. Because people are going to come up and you're going to hear them talk about right-hand stuff, and to the extent they talk about left-hand, it'll be, oh, we want meaning and we want people included, and they'll be all green values. I guarantee it. If I'm wrong, I will be so happy, but I betcha. And Fetzer is the green organization par excellence. I know every one of the board members, known many of them for over almost 30 years now. And they are fantastic people. Many of them are second tier, and all they talk about is how they can't get second tier anything through Fetzer. So I think it's a little bit of a hard grind there. But just finding ways that you can introduce that vertical dimension is extremely important.